Hi, hello. We're back with guest episodes. Now, when this episode comes out, it's going to be the 10th of March, which is very important because it's Wes's birthday. And lucky for them, in lieu of a present, they get to talk to me about their favorite guilty pleasure media. Everyone likes some piece of media that they're not super proud of. Whether you secretly go hard for supernatural fan fiction, you can chronologically tell me the order of every theme from the Met Gala since its inception, or you can't be trusted with the aux chord at parties because your favorite playlist is just every known cover of Depeche Mode's Personal Jesus. I'm not saying that that's my playlist, but it might be. Anyway, I know you've got guilty pleasures and I want to know about them. Wes and I went to high school together, and I've seen almost every iteration of his musical career live except for his most recent project, which is Lava Fangs. You may think this means that we're going to talk about some sort of musical secret shame, but I wouldn't let Wes talk about Radiohead, and he's not that ashamed of it anyway, even though he should be. Instead, we're talking about reality TV and drag, specifically the global juggernaut that is RuPaul's Drag Race. Wes has watched every season. I've watched 2 to 3 episodes one time. Let's see how this shakes out, shall we? I'm Alex.
I'm Wes.
This is Pop Culture Boner, the podcast edition, and today we're thinking about RuPaul's Drag Race. So, to kick this off, given that I don't know a lot about Drag Race, and you know some stuff about Drag Race, Wesley, could you please tell the viewers what Drag Race is?
I don't know. I had this idea that maybe just now, when you mentioned it, we don't need to talk about Drag Race. We can just talk about Johnny Cash's cover of Personal Jesus, which is by far the best cover of Personal Jesus.
Look, I'm happy to talk Personal Jesus all day, every day, because I'm not kidding. When I first joined Spotify, it had a real problem working out what to recommend for me because all I did was listen to covers of Personal Jesus for about 9 weeks straight because I have depression. The algorithm is a little bit better now, but I know a lot about covers of Personal Jesus.
That's amazing.
So I want to know 2 things. I want to know very briefly what Drag Race is, and I want to know why you watch it.
Okay, so Drag Race is a reality TV competition show hosted by the legendary RuPaul, in which drag queens compete to become the next drag superstar. And every week there is a different challenge. And if you are in the bottom 2 for the week, you get the opportunity to save your position in the competition through a lip sync for your life battle. Why do I watch it?
Yes.
I honestly can't stop. I find it an interesting thing to watch, and I generally have enjoyed the characters on the show. I think a lot of the queens bring a real genuine, or it appears to be a genuine personality to the program. And so in that sort of parasocial way, you get to know them. Alex, why don't you watch it?
I think I might be the only homosexual in Sydney who doesn't watch RuPaul's Drag Race. And it's not because I don't like it conceptually. Like, I like the idea of a drag competition, but I hate reality TV. I've never liked it. I've always been really bad at watching it, and I wish I liked it more because it's such a, like, when I worked in media, it was like this water cooler talk where everyone would talk about the things that happened on Married at First Sight or Survivor or whatever was running at the time, and I could never participate because I never watched any of it because I cannot watch it. And I think there's 2 things. One, reality television is based almost exclusively on conflict. That is why it is successful. It's like drama over and over and over again. And I can't stand that. I hate it. It's boring. Be nice to each other. It's why I watch Great British Bake Off, to be honest. Bake Off, great show. I would probably have more thoughts if it was Bake Off, but I don't like it when people are mean to each other. I hate that the entire nexus of the thing is like being kind of catty and undermining people. And the other thing that I don't like about reality television is this kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Artifice?
No, the artifice doesn't really bother me. I think the thing that bothers me is the potential for embarrassment. So prior to recording this episode, I sat down and I watched a little bit of season 2 of Drag Race All Stars.
Yeah, right.
Because I know who Katya is, and I would watch Katya do things. Anyway. But part of the premise of that episode is like a talent show, and one of the girls sings, and it is so off key. It's so off key that I could tell, and I'm tone deaf. Like Wes edits me. He's heard me yell. I'm tone deaf, and I could tell that this girl was singing off key, and like it would cut away to people being like, girl, find the note. Like, and like, that's fine. I don't mind if that's how you want to watch your television, but I would rather tear out my own eyeballs than watch people embarrass themselves publicly in a way that is not just like falling over. Like, I love a falling over video. I cannot stand it when someone is not self-aware enough to tell that they're not singing on key.
I think... Yeah, I know which clip you're talking about. I know which queen you're talking about. I'm pretty sure it's Fifi O'Hara singing a cappella.
A bad idea.
And it's off key and it's off rhythm as well. There's no timing there at all. There is a reason why queens use auto-tune. That's why everyone uses auto-tune. And I'm
but I mean, even
not calling out everyone, but everyone.
But like even the auto-tune, like Detox did a song and it was so auto-tuned and it was this thing that was just like rhythm and she was just hitting things and everyone was like, that was spectacular. And I was like, no, it wasn't. It was just someone hitting drums with glow paint and whispering into auto-tune. I can also whisper into auto-tune. It is not art.
I have to say you're completely wrong because I fucking love that Detox thing because it's so shit that it's good.
Well, look, the difference between you and me is that I spent my undergraduate degree hanging out with people who went to art school. And you know how many bitches I've seen do performance art that involves hitting glow paint on drums? At least 4. And it was bad every time. So that is why I don't like reality television. And specifically Drag Race, I find much more difficult because the other thing that I enjoy about it is also the thing that involves like the most kind of mean feedback, which is the outfits. And so I would just happily skip to the end and like look at the outfits. But then everyone is mean about the outfits. And like, I'm not interested in that. I don't even think people should be nice to each other. Like, I'm not here being like, be positive, guys. But like, I can't watch it because it hurts my soul. And I can't watch Project Runway either. Like,
I think Project Runway is a bit different because obviously, you know, there are design challenges in RuPaul's Drag Race where people have to make a garment. And many of them over the years do not know how to make a garment, and what they end up making
is in fact not a garment.
Really reflects their skill level quite closely. But I think with Project Runway, they are generally people who are designers who know what they're doing, and then get this really.
Well,
harsh
I mean,
critique.
I think that's the different thing about Drag Race again is that these people are also drag queens, and so like. It's not like they're coming out of nowhere, but the scope of RuPaul's Drag Race as a show forces everyone to incorporate all perceived elements of drag. So like lip sync performance, sometimes they have to sing, sometimes they have to act, sometimes they have to dance. Sometimes they have to make costumes. It really focuses on things that most people's, I think, drag careers kind of don't always incorporate. Like some person will do one thing rather than the other thing, or like, you know.
Yeah, I think it might be based on older ideas of drag, and this is where I think the importance of it being RuPaul's Drag Race kind of comes into it, because RuPaul has been around for decades. It's possible that throughout RuPaul's career, that's been the sort of stuff that they've needed to know, and so that's why it comes this way. What I've found in watching it is a lot of the challenges are designed around one or two queens' strengths. And it's generally like the queens that'll do really well throughout the season are the ones that have had their strengths catered to. Because every season is different. It's not like every episode from every season will line up as doing the same challenge, except for Snatch Game.
There's always Snatch Game. Let's talk about Snatch Game. I hate it. And I can say that I hate it again. I watched like a couple of episodes of Drag Race in my life, enough to kind of know some queens.
Right.
But I watched the first episode of the season of All Stars, and it opens with the Snatch Game. And I just don't think it's very funny. It's not funny. And like there are parts of different, like I'm not saying RuPaul's Drag Race itself isn't very funny. Bits of it are, but that particular game is just not, and people seem to really look forward to it.
I think with Snatch Game, I rewatched some of the clips today, and it's got so much potential. Like, obviously, not every queen is a good impersonator, but that's the whole point of it, is to be an impersonator. And the potential to be very, very funny is there, and some queens hit it. But the thing is, most queens don't. And it's usually early on in the season where there's lots of people there, and it ends up being one or two people are actually funny while everyone else is bombing around them. And that, I guess, in your idea of not wanting to be embarrassed on a global stage, I understand why you would hate it.
All of my TV watching is just based around things that I would not want to do myself.
It can happen that there are good performances, but if you look at everyone else that didn't win, mostly shit.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that is just the talent show element of Drag Race.
I think so.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a funny, for something that is ostensibly like part beauty pageant, part talent show.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And like it's definitely based around America's Next Top Model, in that idea. The only thing that hasn't happened is, well, actually, Ru has had some Tyra-like outbursts, but they were never rooting for anybody.
So, like we said, most of these people are not like not newbies to drag. These are people who do drag as a job already, and they audition for Drag Race because it really makes a career. Like it takes your career from maybe you're just living to like being sort of a rich and famous person for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I mean, prior to the pandemic, as soon as you were on the show, you were being booked worldwide.
Yeah.
And that's not an exaggeration. Like, we in Australia have heaps and heaps of RuPaul tours, where the RuPaul queens come out here all the time. I've seen Adore Delano live. I haven't seen anyone else. I should.
How was Adore Delano?
She yelled at me, but it was great. But I think, it's basically, it is more a step up in terms of advancing your career than it is, to quote the show, RuPaul's School for Girls. Like, it's actually, they call it often the Olympics of drag. And you're only generally being auditioned in, like brought into the show on the skills you've already presented. There are different ranges of experience on the show. Like there's queens that have been on there for 30 years. There's queens that have like not on the show for 30 years, but they've been doing drag for 30 years.
The world's longest television season.
They've been running on the show since before it was a show. But like, there's a queen in this current season who has been doing drag for about 30 years. And there's other queens that have started doing drag because of Drag Race. Like we're up to that now where people who were watching the show as teenagers are now the queens competing and winning. And sometimes that is cause for conflict, but oftentimes it's really interesting. And I think, one of the things I do like about the show is, apart from just the genuine personalities that are there, but there's also some really genuine seeming friendships that appear on the show. If you look at something like season 6 with Bianca Del Rio and Adore Delano, like Adore kept getting critiqued for not cinching. And Bianca actually said, well, look, hey, I've got a spare cincher. Do you want me to lace you into it? And like just someone there that's, actually helping people and training them and improving their drag. So even though they are polished already when they come in, there's an expectation that they're going to continue to grow on the show. Bianca went on to win the season. I don't think that's a spoiler considering how old it is.
Yeah, so I guess that's kind of a nice element of the show, is this expectation of growth. But I think what I find most interesting about it is the expectation of an ability to set up an influencer career that exists in the same way that a lot of those bachelor shows do, where you are getting people on who kind of get to the end of the show and they're like, now time to translate my time as a hot person on a television show into selling detox tea. Hi, my name's Brittany. I love to not be bloated. In order to not be bloated, I take my diet shit tea. Diet shit tea. Thank you. I've been Brittany. Obviously, I'm not Instagram famous, nor could I ever be, because that would be my sales pitch. But I think it's really interesting to look at the fact that you can, even though you're getting people who are polished in and you're getting them to improve their skills, what you're actually really significantly setting them up for is quite a real world boost to their career from being someone who does the kinds of clubs that like a low to mid-range drag queen does, and someone who does like shows at the Sheik's private palace somewhere because they've been booked Dita Von Teese style,
Yeah, exactly. And I think drag's probably uniquely positioned in that way because, obviously there's an instant market for cosmetics selling, and also there's certain queens that really operate in a realm of fashion and couture, which is why a queen that's in that Drag Race circle goes from mid-range nightclubs in their hometown or wherever they are currently based to touring the world, doing drag shows, being booked for Fashion Week runways, cosmetic endorsements and things like that. Yeah, it does go really quickly to that level, especially in these later seasons. Like the more popular it's gotten, the bigger the instant fan base is.
If we're talking about Instagram fan bases, this is probably a good transition point to talk about the types of queens that are super successful off the back of Drag Race, because there are layers to it, right? Like it does set you up for a pretty instantaneous set of success, particularly the later seasons, which are sort of becoming increasingly popular now that it's off Logo TV, which it started on and has moved on to VH1.
Yes, that's correct.
So it's definitely like it's hit the kind of mainstream stride where like you can be extremely famous. So the types of queens that are getting famous off the back of that, part of the controversy that often surrounds Drag Race is that these queens are usually thin, white, sort of middle-class, beautiful people, But I did a little bit of looking, right, while I was looking at All Stars, because I recognized a few queens on All Stars. So I recognized Alyssa Edwards.
Yes.
I recognized Kasia because I think she's really funny generally. I recognized Detox.
Yes.
And then a few of them I had seen in other seasons. But there were two that I didn't, or like I recognized one of them, but I hadn't thought about them for a while. And then the other one I hadn't heard of at all because she was in an earlier season.
Okay, so
Tatiana.
Tatiana was in
Yeah.
season 2. Yes, season 2.
So Tatiana was in season 2, and then there is Coco Montrese, who was in the season with Alyssa Edwards and is like a meme, basically. She's look how fucking orange you are, and she turns around. She's got like a lot of, her face is very orange. It's alarming.
Which is why she comes in to the workroom in All Stars with a Dorito.
Yeah, bless her little heart.
Now she's in on the joke. She definitely wasn't at the time.
No. Bless her little heart. She became a meme. But I looked up those two girls, and now Tatiana has 500,000 Instagram followers, which is like not bad. Coco Montrese has under 200,000.
Wow.
Now, obviously, Instagram followers aren't everything. And once you get to a point, you're kind of just like splitting hairs anyway. But if you compare to another queen on the show, let's look at Katya. Katya has 2.2 million followers.
Right. That's a significant difference.
Yeah. So Coco Montrese has 194,000, I think.
Yeah, okay.
And to be sort of, I guess, to put a little like point on it, Coco Montrese was Miss Gay America for 2010, which is like a pretty big sort of underground deal and probably enough of a deal to get you an audition to RuPaul's Drag Race. They've also been doing drag for a really long time. Katya has also been doing drag for a really long time and is extremely funny, but I think there's such a significant difference there between the types of queens that are successful. Now, I can tell you why Katya's successful. It's not necessarily because she's thin and white and beautiful, although that definitely does help.
Yes.
She is extremely funny. Like, that's the huge part of her appeal as a drag queen, is because she is extremely funny. Coco Montrese, the idea of being like, this is like pageantry drag. And that's still quite a subculture, right? That's like being Miss Gay America 2020 is a subcultural drag title that will never really make the jump into the mainstream in the same way that pageants themselves don't necessarily make the jump into the mainstream, aside from, you know, the Miss Americas and that kind of thing. But the like normal sort of run-of-the-mill pageant stuff, we put it on television as a freak show. And this kind of pageantry drag that Coco Montrese does is beautiful and an art form, and definitely something that you should be, you know, interested in if that's what you're into, but it's never going to make that same mainstream jump as someone, I think, like Katya, who is blessed by being extremely funny. But I feel like that's, I don't know, it's pulling up along racial lines as well, you know?
I think obviously there's definitely, and you'd have to be extremely naive or an out-and-out racist to not recognize that there is a racial disparity between the popularity of the queens. That's there. It's also there in the extremely toxic fan culture, which is, you know, a whole thing. But the other thing is, like, with that comedy versus pageantry sort of idea, is one thing that Drag Race has that not a lot of other reality TV shows and competitions have, is it has its own ecosystem. So the YouTube channels, the podcasts, everything else that World of Wonder does, as well as Drag Race, is somewhere for queens to fall into. So someone like Katya, who did season 7 and then did All Stars 2.
I remembered because I had watched the episode of All Stars.
But yeah, so Katya did season 7 and then did obviously season 2 of All Stars, but also is part of the WoW universe. And has a show with Trixie Mattel, which is, I think I pronounced it right.
I think we could Look, both of us could do it better, but we're not going to.
But that show's been running for some time, and that also led to the Trixie and Katya show on another network.
Vice.
Ooh. But yeah, like that sort of exposure was never going to go to Coco Montrese, who is a pageant queen who wasn't particularly funny on the series, although I think did win the comedy challenge in their season. But yeah, I think it was never going to go in Coco's favor the way that they have positioned themselves to be a drag queen and are stuck inside that idea. And I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about the backgrounds of the queens, especially now. Something that exists now that didn't exist at the start of the series is Instagram queens, social media queens. And now there are people who are just look queens. That's all they do, because all they do is dress up, take a photo, post on social media. I can't do it, so I'm not belittling their talent in any way. Like, it's amazing, and some of the makeup is brilliant. But then they're thrown into this pressure cooker situation where they have to do every single other challenge that's thrown their way.
Yeah.
And that's why I guess the Olympics of drag, as it were, really sets that challenge up. But the pageant queens, comedy queens, there's lip sync queens and things like that. They all bring something to the table, but they all have to compete against each other in a way that doesn't always make sense.
Yeah. No, it seems like a very unevenly weighted kind of thing to do. I mean, tackling that kind of the diversity question where you are getting sort of one particular type of queen that is kind of successful, and this kind of huge disparity between the markers of success for queens who are sort of falling into the scope of being employable as like fashion clothes sources and that sort of thing.
Fashion clothes sources.
Let's circle back a little bit on, I guess, the identity politics surrounding that. The show itself is, aside from the racism stuff, which is fairly significant, the other thing that comes up a lot with RuPaul's Drag Race is its treatment of the trans community, in that for a long time, trans people weren't allowed on the show. And then they slowly started to either come out afterwards or begin to make appearances on the show from, like, I think season 9-ish onwards, where Peppermint is out trans woman. Is that am I right?
So Peppermint is technically the first out transgender woman to compete on Drag Race. And they promoted that, and they kind of announced that in one of the episodes on their season that they were a trans woman. And Peppermint was actually runner-up on that season, so got all the way to the final 4, and then they had that was the first season that did the lip sync for the crown. But Peppermint was a fantastic performer, a fantastic competitor, and got all the way through to the end, and, you know, talked about being transgender. There was also Monica Beverly Hills in one of the earlier seasons, came out on the main stage as a transgender woman, but was almost immediately, I don't know if it was the same episode or the next episode, eliminated. So
yeah, despite the fact that there have been trans competitors and trans people in the show, and there are currently trans people in the show.
Yep.
In spite of this, RuPaul consistently has like a pretty not good relationship with at least running his mouth on social media.
I'd say not good. There's definitely a history of questionable comments and a questionable relationship with the trans community.
Yeah, so one of the things that RuPaul has said in response to being called out over some transphobia, responded by saying, you can take performance-enhancing drugs and still be an athlete, just not in the Olympics. Which was is an indication that, like, body modification, which some trans women undertake, is the equivalent of Olympic-level doping, which is just, for one thing, not the case, particularly because a lot of cast members have had significant amounts of plastic surgery to improve their drag or change their drag. Not a single one of those women has their own lips. They are plumped. They are goldfish-like. But, like, there are a few that are really obvious. So I'm thinking of Detox particularly, has had a lot of plastic surgery, which partially is because of an accident, but not their ass. Like, they didn't need their ass fattened post-accident.
No.
But I was looking at Alaska today, and her lips are so big they look like they're about to burst.
Yes.
It looks like an allergic reaction.
both Alaska and Sharon Needles, after their seasons, they both got significant cosmetic surgery afterwards. And they're not alone. Trinity Taylor from the later seasons definitely has had quite a bit of work done. Obviously, yes, you mentioned Detox, quite a bit of work done. Chad Michaels has had work done.
I mean, this is
It's
not a
kind
judgment
of-
call on
No.
plastic surgery.
Not at all.
It's just the hypocrisy of like saying that trans women having gender confirming surgery and taking hormones somehow gives them an unfair advantage in a talent show is silly at best.
Yeah, it's a really interesting take. And yes, there has now been, Peppermint has competed as an out trans woman, but there's been no other out trans women since. And that's a few seasons ago now. And the current season has a transgender competitor, but they are transgender male. And that's got Mick. And
Yeah.
they just seem really cool, by the way, and I hope they win.
Well, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, reading, I guess, some of the responses to some of RuPaul's more transphobic comments, was that people kept saying, or like journalists kept saying, these are surprising, like left of field comments. Now, I don't know if I think that that is the case. I don't think that it's surprising that someone of RuPaul's age and pedigree has conservative views about trans people necessarily. Now, the reason I say that is to maybe give a little bit of context to, I guess, RuPaul's fame.
Mm-hmm.
So RuPaul is one of, I think we said in the opening, one of the most commercially successful drag queens in the world.
I'd go so far as to say the most successful drag queen in history.
Yeah.
In her history.
An extremely commercially successful drag queen.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a lot to do with the time period, I think, in which they became very famous. So they became very, very famous in the 90s, where they were doing Mac ad campaigns, they were doing movies. They had a lot going on, basically. Yep. And I think part of the reason that they were able to become so successful in that particular time period is that they were very unapologetic about what they were doing,
mm-hmm.
but also very entrenched in this idea of being fun or like silly with an identity. So this kind of idea that nothing and no one should be taken seriously. So like you can't take yourself seriously, you can't take anyone else seriously. Everything has to be funny.
And I think a lot of that follows through onto the show. It is still part of, Ru's brand, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think there are positive aspects to it, but I think it is really at odds with how we talk about identity now. And I guess the way that we articulate identity now, where it is something that should be taken seriously and not to the point of never making fun of it necessarily. But I think the problem that we have is articulating the line where fun comes in.
Yeah, and I also think it's up to the individual as to how they want to treat it and how seriously they want to take it. But yes, I think there is a really it's quite disparate, the difference between how it was treated then, how identity was treated in the 90s, and how it's treated now. And the people who are treating it the same way it was treated in the 90s are generally on the right of politics at the very least.
Yeah. So there's one of the queens, or one of the articles that I read, talked to a drag king.
Yeah.
And the drag king was talking about the fact that doing drag was an opportunity to take control of how people saw you, which I don't think is fundamentally at odds with, I guess, the idea of identity when RuPaul was doing drag. It's still taking control of how people see you, but it's taking control of it by being like, well, all of this is stupid, and you're stupid if you think it's any more serious than it actually is.
Mm.
Whereas the way that a lot of people articulate taking control of their identity now is a much more serious thing of like, no, I said this. This is what I said I am. Fuck off and move on,
I think part of the way that works to my understanding, is that we do live in a world that's predominantly defined visually. And so we tend to assign, like, you assign an identity to someone based on how they look. Not you personally, but you know what I mean. Like, it's how we tend to navigate the world. And I think our generation, we're at a point where we're trying to not label everything the second we see it, but a lot of other people still do. And I noticed it in myself just watching the show, is that whenever any of the queens are in drag, I do refer to them with female pronouns, regardless of how they identify. And the majority of contestants do identify as cis men. And yet, part of the way the show works is you do tend to refer to them as she in and out of drag.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if that's a thing. It's just something I noticed.
Well, yeah, no, I think that is something that's kind of worth interrogating a little bit as well, is that I guess the versions of drag that are presented on the show do err a little bit on the conservative side a lot of the time. One of the memories that I have of watching Drag Race is having, like, one queen torn to shreds, just, like, ripped to tiny little pieces for having pants on the runway. And I was like, well, many women I know do in fact wear pants, like, it is still something that, women do. And so the versions of drag that are presented on the show are very, I guess, conservatively aligned with a kind of binary a lot of the time, which I don't think reflects drag culture as a whole. And I think ultimately ends up reinforcing a lot of stereotypes within the show.
I think so. And I think particularly from the judge's perspective, from my perspective of the judge's perspective, I think that's part of what they're looking for is stereotypes and trying to actually see that a lot. And yeah, I find that it really does reinforce the binary. There have been a few instances where a queen will do something actually different, actually daring and actually good. Very few times is it rewarded. So I think,
even just the bit that you were thinking about before, where it was like Adore Delano being made fun of for not cinching her waist.
That's true. I mean, like, that's something, in terms of shape of people. But in terms of, like, even the pants on the runway thing, a lot of it changes. Pants on the runway, people have been criticized for it before. Obviously, in one of the earlier seasons, the drag queen Milan came out in an homage to Janelle Monáe, wearing a suit, and firstly got compared to, I think, Sammy Davis Jr., which is not a nice comparison for anyone. No offense to Sammy Davis Jr. Definitely not someone who's trying to look feminine. But it was essentially, that's a man in a suit. But in terms of pants on the runway, I think in the All-Stars season that you've started watching, there is actually a pants on the runway challenge.
There you go.
So everyone had to wear pants. And by the way, Katya wore a tracksuit. Spectacular.
We love Katya. She's great.
We love Katya.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I find really difficult about RuPaul's Drag Race is that inside me there are two wolves, Wesley, two wolves. One of those wolves is like representation, but at what cost, And then the other wolf is like, shit's a bit nuanced, And so I'm constantly like, one of the things that I struggle with Drag Race from a representation perspective is that I don't think just straight up representation actually does anyone any good. Because, like, if I think about Drag Race and I think about the amount of people from our shitty hometown who have probably watched seasons of Drag Race and really enjoyed it, but would still happily scream dyke at me. And not in a fun and exciting, sexy way, but in a very, I'm going to beat the shit out of you way when I walk down the street. Like, there's a lot of crossover there. Like, I don't necessarily think that having just queer people on television doing drag in a mainstream way necessarily assists with fixing that problem.
I mean, it's definitely done wonders for the visibility of drag queens.
Exactly. And that's great. I love drag queens and they should be as visible as humanly possible, preferably maybe doused in some sort of glitter, rotating in the middle of a dance floor.
Yes.
I love that from a visibility
Work
perspective.
is a thing that they would say.
But I think one of the problems that I have with that is just that, you know, it's doing wonders for drag queens. It's not really making anyone more accepting of queer people or even just fucking weirdos. Like, you know, there's some great weirdos on Drag Race, but like a lot of those queens are just straight up just like, I am here to be beautiful. And like, more power to them. This is where the nuance comes in, is like, I can't say a bad thing without being like, it's fine. But like, none of this is a criticism of drag queens or, you know, the queens on the show themselves. It's more just like people like, ooh, look how good it is that this is on there fixing this thing. And I don't actually think it fixes anything.
It's kind of hard to suggest that one television program, no matter how popular, can fix all that much, especially when the show itself gets called out for its own failings regularly.
Yeah. I think it just is reinforcing a lot of stuff. And like, no one's waiting for TV to fix all of their problems, but
I am.
people are ready to. I am a little bit. But like, people are really ready to put it forward as kind of the representation as the be all and end all of like solving racism or misogyny or homophobia. And like, you can put black people and brown people and queer people and women on your screen all you like. If you are not actually dealing with the nuances of those people's existence, if you're just reinforcing standards that already exist, then like, what's the point, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because the show often discusses this sort of thing within the workroom. Like the queens will be preparing their drag, getting ready, and talking about current political issues. And, you know, oftentimes they actually have really interesting things to say. Some of them have had really horrific experiences and relay them, and some of them obviously have no idea because they've lived in relative privilege. But it's usually, to me, I kind of see it and go, wow, I feel really bad for that one person. Yeah, like, so the show tries, but not always very well. I think in terms of the trans representation, one of the things that's interesting, the way that it's evolved, is a lot of the catchphrases change. There are so many catchphrases from the show. But whenever, you know, Ru contacts the girls and tells them what the challenge is, up until I think a few seasons ago, it was, you know, you've got she-male, which is a pun on Tyra male, or but obviously it's, you know, also a slur. That changed after people complained about it, but it had been happening for quite a few seasons already. There was also a challenge or a mini challenge, which was, you know, identify this person, is it a psychological female or a biological female, and that got rightfully called out as well. And I've noticed in this season that the catchphrase, like the actual tagline of the show, has actually been modified. So when Ru would in previous seasons say, "Gentlemen, start your engines and may the best woman win," it's now, "Racers, start your engines and may the best drag queen win." So there are small things that are changing within the show, and the show is trying, but I don't think it's really making that much difference in the real world.
Yeah, which, you know, it's TV. It's kind of hard to...
It is TV.
Hard to quantify.
And it is pretty trashy reality TV. Like, it's not highbrow in any way.
Yeah. No, it's enjoyable because it is silly. Anyway, one of the things that I think is probably symbolic, I guess, of maybe the disconnect between the kind of formerly radical nature of RuPaul and RuPaul as he stands now.
It's fracking, isn't it?
It's fracking. RuPaul is fracking. Let's just say it one more time together because it's really fun to say. 3, 2, 1.
RuPaul is fracking.
He's fracking.
It's fine. He's just leased the mineral rights to his ranch.
And he's doing the thing that we all universally agree is really bad.
It's fucking bad.
Even people sitting somewhere in the middle, we all pretty much agree Fracking not good.
Well, obviously Ru has just gone, well, I've got this patch of land and it better work. I don't want to do anything, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make money by leasing the mineral rights and having oil companies come in and drill and do the fracking.
I'm not adverse to whatever, you need to do to get that bag, except maybe fracking. But yeah, I think maybe if we were to sort of like find a point from RuPaul is fracking, aside from the fact that that point is just fun to say, I think it's pretty symbolic of the kind of disconnect between RuPaul as like a formally kind of radical, countercultural almost figure.
To me, it's really reflective of the shift in your consciousness as you ascend to the upper class, I guess, as it were, and the way that class interacts with what we're talking about here.
Look, money makes you a fucking idiot.
As Cyndi Lauper says, money changes everything.
Yeah, and it makes you a fucking idiot.
And it makes
Alex
you a
Johnson.
fucking idiot.
But like, I don't know. I think to end on a point, to drag a point out of it, like I consider my politics to be reasonably left, and I consider them to intersect. Like I consider my feminism and my queerness to intersect with other sort of points of privilege that mean that it's a nuanced and complex existence, and I just think that like if you have navigated all of that and all it took was like a couple of $1 million to be like, fuck it, we're fracking, baby. Like we're probably different people.
I think so. And I think money changes everything, and we've gotten to a point where on the show, on the UK version of the show recently, RuPaul got furious, and it has been turned into a meme, but was furious at a contestant for wearing H&M store-bought off-the-rack clothing on the runway after 7 months of lockdown in the UK in a pandemic where they had no work and were making no money. And it's like, surely there's got to be some leeway there that you're allowed. Like, it wasn't a great garment, but that's not the point. The point is that Ru is so out of touch that it's like, come on, I want to see fucking couture on my runway. No fucking H&M on my runway. And it's just this complete disparate feeling of class. And yeah, I think the fracking really speaks to that in a sense of where does your mind go to go, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's make that land work for me in the worst possible way.
I'm gonna hollow out the earth.
I don't think there's anything more alienating that RuPaul can do.
Yeah. I mean, it's very strange. It's such a weird move.
And to mention it so casually as well.
Yeah.
As if everyone's fucking doing it.
Maybe everyone is doing it. We're just not rich enough to know. So that was the end of RuPaul's Drag Race.
RuPaul's Frack Race.
RuPaul's Frack Race. May the best fracker win. Yeah, so everyone say happy birthday, Wesley.
Oh, happy birthday, Wesley.
Happy birthday, Wesley.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
I got you this plot of land to frack.
Fuck yes.
Happy birthday.
You know what I'm going to not do with it? I'm not going to lease the mineral rights.
Oh, well, that's rude. I bought it specifically to be fracked. Yeah, so welcome back to the guest episodes. These will probably continue once every 6 or so, as we did last season. Do you have anything to plug?
I am in a band called Lava Fangs, which Alex mentioned at the top of the show. We're on Spotify and Bandcamp. You can buy a vinyl record, which is pretty exciting, and that's kind of cool. I also have some solo stuff, which I record under the name of Lee Snipes, which is also on Spotify.
Yay! Also, if you buy the Lava Fangs vinyl album, you get a little bonus Alex work in it.
That's true.
Anyway, if you're not following the podcast on social media, you can do that. It is at Pop Culture Boner on Twitter and Instagram. You should also follow us on your favorite audio streaming platform, whatever that might be.
It's not iHeartRadio, is it?
It could be iHeartRadio. Who are we to judge? But Spotify, Apple. If you're on Apple, you can leave us a little rate and a review, which is cute. You should do that. Other than that, if you want to talk about fracking, come and have a chat next time you see us at the pub. Peace.